Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on Renegade Pop Culture. Before the show tonight, I just want to let you all know that if you like our work, please give us a rating and a follow on any site that you listen to this podcast on, and that includes Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That'll help us out immensely with our work. And now, on to the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And boy, today we got a good one. This is our kinda, sorta awards special. We've got reviews for pretty much anything we review tonight will be on the Oscars Best Animated Feature shortlist, and are already up for numerous awards, including Sing 2, Flea, The Summit of the Gods, Josie the Tiger and the Fish, and Belle. But before we get started, we have a little bit of a news, kind of an update on a film from Pixar, Turning Red, which has a new release date, March 11th, and will be premiering on Disney+. And Cameron and I both have thoughts about this.
I'm mixed. Honestly, like a lot of thoughts going all over the place with this announcement. On one hand, I get it. The pandemic is still a thing. It's going to be going on a lot longer than we would love for it to be. And for now, kids are not able to get vaccinated, and even though we're all doing our best to be as protective and as safe as possible, there's just a lot of like safety issues with going out into a movie theater, and there aren't super strict safety protocols for now. With that said, they could have easily just delayed the movie. They could have easily done a hybrid release, like what DreamWorks and Universal did with Boss Baby 2. They could have even done a premiere on demand charge of like the 20 to 30 bucks or whatever. They didn't, though. They just said it's going to be there for free. And who knows what it's going to be like in 2 months. Things could be better, and who knows, they could bounce back and say like, hey, we're actually going to do a hybrid release. So, but it's also really frustrating because they keep doing this to Pixar's original movies. They didn't do this with any of their upcoming Marvel stuff. They didn't do this with Lightyear. And it's kind of hard to not look at this and be like, wow, they put the first solo female directed film from Pixar onto Disney Plus, and the first person of color to solo direct a Pixar film. It's like there's some understandable reasons behind it, but there's also just a lot of frustration about it. At least more people will get to see it and they can be safe about it. But I also think some people are being a little too the end is nigh, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Really, it's the optics of this all that kind of bother me. And like you said, this has only happened to Pixar's originals. I understand like the motivation behind it, and there's a little bit of evidence to this move turning out successful. For example, as of this recording, it's been like a few weeks since Encanto has been on Disney Plus, and since then that movie has like skyrocketed in popularity. I understand like the short-term gain for doing this, but at the same time, it is just very frustrating how, while they may not think this is the case, from the outside looking in, it does feel like Disney is sort of treating Pixar as like kind of disposable, or they're treating them as like basically a content farm for their streaming service, and not really giving them the pomp and circumstance of a traditional theatrical release.
It's frustrating because they won't do this with many of their other films.
And they're definitely not going to do this with Lightyear, because that movie is almost guaranteed to make $1 billion on the name alone.
And I don't want to say that like the reaction between Lightyear and Turning Red was also maybe a cause of this, because Disney should not be looking at online reactions, or at least don't look at the ones that cause the production cycle for those live action remake films that they make.
Just in general, no studio should ever be reactionary to this extent. I understand there's like a fine line between listening to your audience but also kind of following your own judgment. And I really hope that Disney isn't going down that slippery slope.
Because I'm excited for both Turning Red and Lightyear. They're both going to be pretty good movies.
Oh yeah, same.
But I do think the online reaction to Turning Red being like mostly, it looks cute. And then everyone just melting at the sight of Lightyear. I mean, I'm trying not to put a bunch of blame on people on Twitter and on Facebook and online and such. But those reactions, like trailer reactions and such, are going to affect what the bigger companies are going to do. And it's not going to be a Sonic the Hedgehog situation where the online reactions actually led to something good. I think part of the reaction to Turning Red, and just for some reason people just aren't wowed by it, even though there's a lot of important elements to this movie, did, I think, send a negative feedback, which it shouldn't have been negative, like, for to be honest and clear, to Disney saying, oh, I don't know. And then it's also just bad timing. And it just sucks that, like, when the pandemic was at its lowest points, everyone would just go see the big Marvel movies. And I don't hate the Marvel movies. And it does suck that, like, the recent Spider-Man film came out right at the very begin, like before the Omicron stuff kicked in the high gear. And I can understand that also helped. That probably scared a lot of theater people, like studios and such.
Imagine even feeling responsible for the spread of at that exact time, because that's a headache that none of those distributors want to deal with.
I'm just saying, when I saw the crowd reactions on Twitter, it's like, oh Lord, I don't want to be there. But that's really all I have to say. I'm still going to watch it. The people who work at Pixar and the people making the films at Pixar, they're such talented people and creative individuals, and I'm going to support the movie any way I can. And
Same.
It should be supported, since if you want original films, you gotta watch them. And now this one is readily available, and I think boycotting it when it hits Disney Plus is going to send the wrong message. What's really maddening is just it's a no-win scenario, because the people at Pixar are getting screwed over. And if it fails on Disney Plus, then that sends an entirely different message to Disney and Pixar, saying, oh, I guess they don't want new experimental and non, franchise stuff. And it's like, no, we do. Like, for the love of gravy, Encanto is doing really well. That should be a huge sign that people want original movies. So
yeah, this is the reason why I never subscribe to the idea of boycotts, even when it's like companies like Warner Brothers, who, they definitely have skeletons in their closet, but at the same time, nobody who works in Hollywood is totally innocent. You really just have to support the filmmakers first and studios second.
Yeah, and I know that's like weird, and just how do you pull that off? I don't know. It's just tough. And my heart goes out to everyone working at Pixar. I'm still going to love your work. I'm still going to resent the fact that this isn't getting a theatrical release. I get it. And there's just a ton of things that are just wrong with the theatrical experience anyway. But that's like for an entirely different discussion. That's all I have to say about this topic.
For now, we got to move on to our reviews. And the first one is probably going to be the one where Cameron and I disagree the most, and that is Sing 2.
Or I just exhaust you to the point where you finally agree with me. No. No, I'm kidding. That's a horrible thing to do. So I just watched a Parks and Rec episode, and they made that kind of like the punchline to someone beginning their relationship. And it's like, oh no, honey, no, don't do that.
Nice. Sing 2 is the sequel to Illumination's 2016 original, written and directed by Garth Jennings. And in this film, our can-do koala, Buster Moon, and his all-star cast of animal performers prepare to launch a dazzling stage extravaganza in the glittering entertainment capital of the world. There's just one hitch. He has to find and persuade the world's most reclusive rock star to join them. What begins as Buster's dream of big-time success soon becomes an emotional reminder of the power of music to heal even the most broken heart. So Cameron, you hated this. Why? No, just kidding.
Okay. Oh, we're going to go at that, aren't we? No. Listen, at the end of the day, I do enjoy watching this movie. This is kind of like a comfort food movie to watch. It's not super complex or like the most like distinct experience. Like it's not one of those experiences where, oh, you got to be in the exact right mood to watch a certain movie. This is a movie you could just turn on and enjoy and just have a good time with. On the other hand, this is just another movie that Illumination has made where I don't know what's going on behind the scenes or what's going on in the production cycle of these movies. I'm getting a little tired of how they are crafting their movies, or at least how they're telling their stories. Because let's just go into the pros. This is a very visually stunning movie from Illumination. You can tell from their debut in 2010 to now, they have grown immensely. And whether that's due to better technology, better talent, more time, more money put into this, even though a lot of their movies cost the same thing.
They're usually all within like 75 to 80 million.
They look good. It looks great. And it looks even better than the 2016 film. And they were pretty like on a roll with having really, really rock solid CGI. I don't agree with this notion that they make cheap looking movies.
Oh, of course not.
I remember when that was a huge thing back in 2016 after this movie came out, and everyone was like, oh man, everyone's going to follow Illumination's success and they're just going to make movies that look cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And it's just like, oh man, this is some scaremongering nonsense from a bunch of obnoxious YouTubers. The people who work at Illumination are very talented. The animation is great. Once again, even though this is a jukebox musical and that's not everyone's cup of tea, I think I liked the music in this more than the first movie. I think that's probably right. I think I liked the performances more, and that's probably also because it has more U2 music, even though the first one did have Elton John. So, but what did you think about the soundtrack?
I haven't spun the Sing 2 soundtrack as often as I did the original, and I think the original had like a couple more like original songs, but like you said, the inclusion of U2 and the specific arrangements of like their classic songs like Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, or one of my favorite songs, Where the Streets Have No Name.
Right.
Those like these new arrangements are really good. I think the highest compliment I have to pay to this movie is how they used Bono in the film. I know it's easy to assume that like in exchange for getting him onto this film, they kind of had to include a little bit of his catalog, but it works because yeah, he's a celebrity, but he's not like phoning in his performance. He's actually playing a character. I thought he did a really good job in, apparently this is his first voice acting role.
Illumination has a weird way of doing that, because even though I really did not like The Secret Life of Pets 2, Harrison Ford was the best part of that movie. And he's not a new actor, but he was new to voice acting. And he had the best performance of that movie next to like Patton Oswalt's. And here, like, you think this would be disaster because we've seen musicians try to act and it's like, oh, no, honey, no, don't stop talking. But Bono takes this 100% seriously. It's amazing of how like much effort he has in this movie. And this already has a pretty good voice cast in general. Like, I mean, of course, we've had Matthew McConaughey, Reese Witherspoon, Scarlett Johansson, Taron Egerton, Bobby Cannavale, Tori Kelly, Nick Kroll, Pharrell Williams, Hazley, Chelsea Peretti, Letitia Wright. We'll get to that in a moment. Eric Andre, Adam Buxton, Garth Jennings returns as Miss Crawley. And then we got like returning cast members for minor roles like Nick Offerman and such. And a surprise uncredited role for Spike Jonze as Jerry, the cat assistant to Bobby Cannavale's Jimmy Crystal character.
That's actually really cool casting. I didn't actually know that until I looked it up a second ago.
I think you can spot Edgar Wright in the first one. I think he plays one of the gorilla henchmen.
Yep. And here he's the voice of a dog cop and a pig chauffeur.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting when they bring in other directors just to do this kind of thing. And I will say, like, Taron Egerton is still very good as Johnny. I like him. He probably gets the most development out of the cast members. And I'll get into that because that's actually one of my big problems with this movie. And Bobby Cannavale is just great. I love him. He's great as his extremely cutthroat wolf character. I was hoping that Darius, Eric Andre's character, would have been a little more bombastic or just a little more extra.
I think the problem is he doesn't really get enough screen time because, for better or for worse, Johnny kind of has, out of everyone who's not Buster Moon, Johnny kind of gets the most, like, he gets the meatier story arc.
But I did like Eric Andre. I thought he was very funny and amusing because those kind of actors exist. And
oh yeah,
I liked Garth Jennings as Miss Crawley. I thought Miss Crawley was super amusing in this.
I gotta ask, who at Illumination is a System of a Down fan? Because because they've had their music featured in both this and Secret Life of Pets. So I gotta ask, is Chris Melandrini like secretly a System of a Down fan, and any opportunity he gets sneaks a song into the soundtrack?
I know that it was probably like a low-hanging fruit kind of joke to have the frail assistant to Buster Moon listen to heavy metal. And then we've seen this kind of thing in other movies like Monsters University, with the mom. I'm just going to wait in here. And then you hear like death metal screaming coming from the car. But there is just something funny about Miss Crawley driving this super fancy hot rod. And you hear, what's the System of a Down song? Chop Suey?
Yep.
And just hearing her sync up with it is very funny. And I did like the I'm trying to find the one that Hazley sings, Could Have Been Me by the Struts. That's the one she sings during her big moments in the film. And I thought she did a good job with that. There were some really good performances from a lot of people who were singing. And I will say that like Pharrell didn't really do much. He was just kind of like the nice ice cream guy. Not that he does a bad job. It's just very like, it's in his range.
Yeah, it's almost a thankless role because in recent years, Pharrell has kind of been pretty much attached to the hip of Illumination's projects. He's been involved in some capacity since the beginning, really.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's very interesting because yeah, he did do like the soundtrack for Despicable Me, and then he had a huge hit with the second film. I think it was
Yep.
the second film. Yeah, with Happy, and it was and he was like the narrator for their take on the Grinch, which I still don't think it was that bad of a movie, guys.
Oh no, the Grinch is probably like my second or third favorite Illumination film.
Right. I mean, not to say I don't have my issues with it, but we'll do that another time. Though I think another scene stealer was Adam Buxton as Klaus Kickenklobbe, the proboscis monkey and dance instructor.
Okay, yeah, he's actually featured heavily in my Letterboxd review. What I compared him to, and I'm sure we'll kind of get into this a little bit later, is he kind of embodies the criticisms that everybody has about Illumination's filmography. And I could be reading a little bit too much into that, but I swear when he says, "You will never be great," that feels a lot more metatextual than anything else.
I was kind of thinking that came from Suki, Chelsea Peretti's character, saying like, "Oh, it's kind of cute, but not much else." Like, I feel like that. Yeah, there's been this weird discourse around this movie where it seems like it's like Illumination is taking some pot shots at its critics, and not to say that it's not warranted. I think the internet has kind of overblown Illumination as like the worst thing to ever happen.
Absolutely. And that's
And some YouTubers who focus on animation have called themselves out on that and saying, like, you know what, I need to do better about it. Because a lot of those reviews are freaking miserable to sit through. Like it's not a review. You're not doing anything. You're just being a punk. Not to say that you can't criticize Illumination. There's plenty to criticize. But to say that they are the worst, no. They make some odd decisions, but they're not the worst. Especially when we have other studios out there that have much more questionable quality. So, what do you think about this trope? Like, do you think it's like warranted when like films are allowed to do this, or do you think it looks a little immature, like to say like all of Illumination's critics are this one proboscis monkey and such?
I think it depends. On the one hand, it could be viewed as like the people at Illumination feeling sort of like insecure about their position on like the animation food chain. However, as we kind of described, Illumination has been treated very unfairly by people who may not necessarily know how the sausage is made. While I don't think it's fair to generalize all of Illumination's critics, I feel like this time it's a little bit justified.
It is. And I think I'm okay with this unless it becomes a little too on the nose about what they're calling out or who they're calling out.
Here's the thing, the reason why it's okay here is because this is a movie about show business. So it feels as on the nose as it would have been in, say, like The Secret Life of Pets.
Yeah, no, well, it's like a lot of films do this. There was that film from I think it was last year, the one with John David Washington and Zendaya.
Oh, Malcolm and Marie?
Yeah, I think that's it. And then of course there's the one critic character in, I think it was that M. Night Shyamalan film Lady in the Water,
Oh, yeah.
where I feel like, okay, come on now. And I know some people are slowly coming back to that film and being like, hey, that character was justified. And it's like, I don't know if I'm there yet. If you agree with that, good for you. I'm just not ready to turn back on that movie suddenly. You have to be careful when you use that. It's kind of like how at first Disney had all those like meta jokes about the Disney animation formula.
Then they kind of took it a step too far.
They took it a step too far, and it's like, okay, Disney, come on now. You have like a third of the film industry in your back pocket. Like, no, you can't do that anymore. Which they've kind of pulled back on, or they got more creative and more substantial with the meta take or something like that. There's a time and place to be meta and to be fight back against critics, but again, just be careful of how you handle it, or else the critics will have ammunition to use back on you, like the Roland Emmerich Godzilla film.
Yep.
Like how it had like the two Siskel and Ebert looking guys, and it's Siskel and Ebert where it's just like, you couldn't have made them step on us or eat us. Like, what's the point? Which, good question. Do you have any other positives to say before we move on to like the main meaty discussion of the criticisms, or just stuff that, depending on where you land, are mostly my criticisms?
Honestly, as far as positives go, mine are pretty much the same that I've had of the original film. Only this time, I think where I latched onto more is the show within a show, which I don't know if this is a reference to other sort of, ambitious genre stage productions, but it is kind of a cool coincidence that this movie came out the same year as Tick Tick Boom, which was about Jonathan Larson kind of writing his ambitious rock opera called Superbia.
Right. I could see it going both ways. Like, a lot of times it's mostly timing.
It's probably more a coincidence. I just think it's cool, just in general, that 2021 has been the year of the musical.
I mean, how many musicals did we have this year? Like West Side Story, In the Heights, Tick Tick Boom, Vivo,
Cyrano, Annette.
It's been a very fruitful year for them, even though we all kind of thought Cats could have almost killed it. And I think it kind of did in some ways, but we'll talk about that another time. Let's talk about the overall story. And I think that's where this movie falls immensely flat. This movie, like a lot of Illumination films, has a bad case of there's too much going on itis. Because since they brought back all the characters, except for Seth MacFarlane's mouse guy, which I'm sure, was taken care of off screen, if you know what I mean.
He did.
Yeah. But they brought back everyone. And I feel like that was a bad idea, because then they had to introduce a ton of new characters. And it's too busy. And that results in too many characters getting extremely unsatisfying story arcs. Buster Moon doesn't have a whole lot to his arc. He had his theater. His story is basically over. So he's doing the next thing by doing this big stage show for, they don't call it Las Vegas, but it's Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Rosita is afraid of heights. Okay. And that really goes nowhere. And I mean, it's not like it doesn't have a complete arc. There's nothing there. That's frustrating, because she had probably one of the better arcs within the first movie. Here it was just like, oh, she's afraid of heights. That's it. Everything's solved. Now she doesn't.
Her arc in this movie kind of feels like they had to create some sort of drama to involve the daughter of like Jimmy Crystal to create tension. They took the scenic route from point A to point B, like turning Crystal into like the big antagonist.
And I liked Portia Crystal. I think there could have been a lot more to be had with the whole nepotism and studio note kind of thing of like, I want my daughter in this movie. And even though she's a great singer, because, Hazley's a singer, but I did get a kick out of this predictable plot element where they realize that Portia can't act to save her life, which is usually the thing with, nepotism. Someone can't act, but they're the child of a very rich executive.
I think it's kind of genius casting, though, that they cast a non-actor to not act.
Yeah, no, it worked. Halsey works very well, but her arc is also just non-existent and just finishes up quite abruptly. And then Nick Kroll, we don't really get an ending for him. He just solves everything off screen.
I don't think he really had an arc. I don't think every character needs to have a meaty arc, but if you're going to have such a large ensemble, you need to know which characters are going to be the ones who take charge.
Right. And I mean, like Nick Kroll, his character Gunther was way more substantial in the first movie because he was the one to help Rosita feel more alive, to find the passion, or as he says in the first movie, the fire and desire of what to do. And not much to do. Ash really, like, I think this is the most frustrating part of it. The whole heart and marketing and the overall point of this film, like the main soul of it, was to have Clay Calloway play on the show. And they played up his dramatic moments very much in the marketing.
Yeah.
And his story arc is barely in the movie. And I thought there was a few decent moments. I liked his interaction with Ash. And I wish there was kind of more of that instead of everything else going on. Because then he gets convinced off screen. I'm not saying you need everything on screen, but when this is like the major important story beat, come on. And Bono was just great. I liked him. And I like that moment before he goes out on the stage where you see like his deceased wife like show up behind him or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's sweet. But it's just so not substantial enough of a story. And it kind of drove me nuts. And that's why I just don't like a lot of Illumination films at times. They introduce so many interesting story beats, and I don't want them to try to imitate Pixar, but I want them to do something.
I think what will keep some people from loving this movie is that, well, I personally enjoy the sort of ensemble nature of the Sing franchise. I will say a problem with this film especially is that I don't think there is an actual hierarchy of like the plot. I don't really know if you can call anything necessarily the A plot, the B plot, the C plot. They're all there isn't one that has more importance than the other. Despite like how the film is marketed, it almost feels like within the movie itself, Johnny's arc in the movie feels a little bit more important, even though Universal was clearly trying to advertise, hey guys, we got Bono.
Very much so. And it's just like, and I get it. And his story was satisfying, but that's because he was the only one to get a satisfying arc. And as much as like I was just okay with the Nushi character, the Lynx, you think after everything going on with Letitia Wright, they would have re-recorded her lines. She didn't really offer someone else that had a little more personality to the character. But then again, there wasn't really a whole lot to her character.
That's the thing. Like, literally, she could have been played by anyone.
And again, with Darius, Eric Andre's character, he's not really substantial to the arc. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I blame myself for being overhyped that he was in this movie and knowing who he is as like a comedian and his style of humor. It almost comes off like he was miscast in this movie. Like when I think of Eric Andre as a yak, I think of just loud, bombastic, self-important, and he wasn't that enough. And like you watch the Eric Andre show, you know how chaotic he can be and how that's like a lot of people's like style of humor. I don't know if it was just like something happened within production or they had to tone down his character, but it didn't really mesh with Mina getting the weakest plot of any character. The direct to video plot element that Disney used for those multiple mediocre direct to video films that they used to pump out during the 2000s. Mina gets a boyfriend. To be fair, Tori Kelly and Pharrell are cute. Their characters were very cute. They're like the heart of just like cute romance stuff. But oh, guess what? We don't have time to invest into it because we got 500 other plots to get through. Really? You had to go and do the someone gets a love interest who didn't get one in the first movie? I hate that trope. It's not good storytelling. It's like they had to find something to do with everyone when they could have probably cut half the characters out and then focused more on the stuff like with Bono and so on. Or here's a spicy take and one that probably wouldn't have worked. You do an entire different cast. Like new characters, no one returning.
I don't know if I would have gone with that route. I think at the very least you had to keep Buster Moon. If his role was kind of played down and Reese Witherspoon, Scarlett Johansson, and Taron Egerton took the lion's share development, you could have shrunk down like the core cast and maybe had everyone else in like kind of background roles. But I will agree with you that by giving everyone so much to do and at the same time not enough, it does kind of hurt the focus of what could have been a stronger A plot.
And I think this was like a logical next step. Go to where one of the next big like locations in all of the US are. And I did like Egerton singing A Sky Full of Stars from Coldplay. I love that song. So
it's a great song and his rendition is great too.
I know. I'm so impressed that everyone can sing in this cast. I mean, barring the ones who can already sing. And I do think it was like a clever way to be like, listen, Eric Andre, we love you, but we're not going to have you sing. Which, like, it was a cute completion of Mina's arc, but still, like, and I liked the performance between Tori and Pharrell, but I think that's really where all of my frustration with where this story is. There's too much going on, and yet there's not enough going on. And it just seems like they needed to either cut down the cast or just do an entirely different cast or something like that, because it seems like they had to kind of like regress a few characters. Like Ash is, yes, she's playing for like sold out crowds, but she's still getting treated like dirt. So not to say that's not a thing that happens in Hollywood and show business. It does, and it sucks. But I don't know. It just seemed like she was like beyond that. I just feel like bad that I'm being so critical about this. Not to say that you shouldn't be. Like, if you do not like a movie, be honest about it. Don't just try to save face because you're worried about people not agreeing with you or something.
On the flip side of that, if you love a movie, don't feel embarrassed just because you're not in the majority.
Yeah, like, don't feel bad about liking a movie. Don't feel bad about liking this movie. I still enjoy it, even with my frustrations with it. Like, I still love the big opening like performance with the Alice in Wonderland thing. To what was it, Prince? I think that was great. Johnny's sequence was great. The whole final sequence was amazing. Like, very visually stunning. And it kind of helps make it look better. When I watched a movie recently, and it's not a musical per se, but it's based off of like a dance routine that's very well known, and you just watch the movie does not take advantage of being an animated movie. Yeah, when it's not its fault, but I saw Sing 2 right before seeing this movie,
and the difference was pretty sharp.
Yeah, because it shows like, wow, Sing 2 actually put a lot of effort into this big final climactic like musical moment and what have you. And I liked some of the jokes. Like I liked Miss Crawley becoming the boss of the production. I thought that was very funny.
Turning into a drill sergeant.
Yeah. And even though they do rehash the audition medley sequence, I think they were a lot more creative with the song choices.
And the way they were all rejected.
Yeah. I still get a huge kick out of a few of those moments. Like I like the Slim Shady one with the three ducks. I like the Slug singing Drake with that cell phone song. I love those big Japanese drums groups.
Oh, yep.
And how they're just like he was pressing the button, but because the drums were so loud,
they didn't hear it at all.
And then of course that I don't want to say it's a lemur. I don't want to categorize the animal, but the one that was singing Billie Eilish, the "What do you want from me? What da 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 da? What do you know?" And they were just all mortified, like, "Okay, this is terrifying. Next." And again, like I like a lot of these performances, and it's a very sweet movie. It's wholesome. There's a lot of understandable reasons and elements why this movie has raked in almost $200 million now at the box office.
That's honestly impressive for, as we described earlier, still in the pandemic.
Yeah. And not even Encanto was able to go that far. I mean, it still made money, but considering how much that movie costs compared to Illumination, even though they keep shoving so many celebrities in.
I wonder if that's why they don't overspend on the film itself, because a lot of that money will go to P&A and I guess probably back-end deals for the cast.
It is interesting because they probably use more celebrities than most of the animation studios. Disney and Pixar don't even market that their like voice casts as like a major selling point. They're just like, hey, here's this new movie. Here's what the story is. And you'll probably recognize a few of the actors, but we're not going to be like have a sequence in the trailer where we list off everyone who's in the movie. And like Illumination, I think Sony are the only ones still going for like, hey, we're going to list off who we have in this movie so you can come see it.
Even DreamWorks, to a certain extent, has kind of backed off on that. Not completely. I guess they're sort of like in between.
Yeah. No, they're transitioning out of it. In a lot of ways, I was happy to see this movie because it was really weird going a year without an Illumination film in 2020, because it was just kind of like you don't realize what you miss until it actually happens. And I think that's very interesting in a lot of ways. But, for me, I give it like a good 6 out of 10, a 3 out of 5 for this movie. Fun to watch, just not a super comprehensible story. Not that it's hard to follow. It's just like, we just spent a ton of time talking about it, so I'm not going to repeat anything there.
For me, I gave this the patented 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, but I guess with some distance since my last viewing, I'd probably bring it down to probably a 9.5 out of 10. And sure, I may be grading this on the Illumination curve, but for what it's trying to do, even with all its flaws, I still think it's up there at the top of their filmography. I think it helps that they have a strong creative voice in their director, Garth Jennings, who kind of brings a lot more of his sensibilities to the material. I hope the success of this movie inspires Illumination to sort of push themselves creatively.
And I think they are kind of doing that. I mean, granted, I say that as they're about to put out another Minions movie and the Super Mario Brothers movie. But Benjamin Renner, the French director who helped direct Ernest and Celestine and The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales, is going to be making a movie with them. So we'll just have to see. I think we're at a point where a lot of studios are having to adapt to the situation and adapt to the scene, because it's like after, and I honestly do believe that Spider-Verse kicked it into high gear, because now everyone wants a very distinct experience. And they know trying to compete with Disney to be a Disney movie ain't going to work. Trying
Mm-hmm.
to compete against Pixar and try to be a Pixar film, that's not going to work. Even trying to compete against DreamWorks, that's not going to work. Even DreamWorks tried to compete with Illumination with films like Home, and it backfired on them.
I remember that period.
Well, I mean, like, backfire in a sense of Home still made a lot of money and it still had a fairly decent Netflix animated series. So take that as you will, as it didn't do well. But you know how that stuff goes. But yeah, Sing 2 is now readily available to rent. I still think that if you haven't seen it, I would recommend doing that as of right now, unless you feel safe enough to go to a movie theater. But personally, I wouldn't make it a priority, but that's just me.
I think this one, it's completely up to you how comfortable you feel going to the movies. But as of this recording, if you would prefer to watch it at home, you have that option now. But let's move on to, if not the best, then certainly the most unique film on our slate. We've got Flea, the international co-production directed by Jonas Poer Rasmussen. And this film follows Amin Nawabi, who arrived as an unaccompanied minor in Denmark from Afghanistan. Today, at 36, he's a successful academic and is getting married to his longtime boyfriend. A secret he has been hiding for over 20 years threatens to ruin the life he has built for himself. For the first time, he is sharing his story with his close friend. Boy, this is quite a tale.
So it's kind of hard to like explain how important this film is, at least to the year of 2021 in film. This film went around pretty early to multiple film festivals.
Started with Sundance last year.
Yeah, and it took home to one of the major awards there, and that's when we got films like Coda and Crypto Zoo, and then it like kept dominating at film festivals and building up hype, and then like I don't think it competed at the Cannes Film Festival, but it won one of the major awards at the Annecy Film Festival. It was a runner-up at the Toronto International Film Festival for documentaries. It took home one of the awards at Animation is Film. And, you know, that if you know the lineup for that year's films, you know, that includes Belle, which we'll get to later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it took home, like, let's see here. It won a boatload of awards, and it's pending on like many others.
Yeah.
I could have counted how many, but that would have taken too long. And we have so many other films to talk about. Anyway, this animated feature / documentary about his life, I don't know if I put it in my top 10 films of the year. It's in my top 20 though. And I think a lot of the hype was very much worth it. It's not like a big roaring loud event movie. It's very much a quiet, somber, and human experience.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I think the best way to describe this for someone who's just hearing about this for the first time is picture the animation less like a Disney movie and more like a visual journal kind of brought to life, like someone sketching out their life story. Probably the best way to tell this story while keeping the emotion of the narrative like front and center, while still kind of taking advantage of the medium.
Yeah, so let's talk about the animation first, because this was like apparently a sticking point for many people, because a lot of the discussion right now is going around that it has its biggest chances at winning best documentary and best foreign feature, though apparently it's going to have to bump heads with Drive My Car. which, a delightful competition to say the least, or an interesting competition to say the least. The animation is definitely like, it's not going to be theatrical quality. It uses a lot of, like, I'm not going to say it uses a lot of more animated storyboard style visuals, but it's not going to look as fluid as something like the Swallows of Kabul or like the Breadwinner or other 2D animated features that were released this year. And that doesn't bother me because I've seen so many animated films that have this kind of style. Joseph
I was
has
just about to bring that up.
has that kind of visual style. Ongaku Our Sound is very much in that visual style, but it's still good looking. The sketchbook artwork looks amazing, and it's not like the limited animation still doesn't bring you in on an emotional level, because it does. It's just different, and that should never be a bad thing.
I think the fact that this is a deliberate stylistic choice kind of, it certainly helps because they're not necessarily going for a grand adventure or anything. This is literally just like a refugee. If the animation kind of feels like it's stream of conscious, that is like exactly what they're going for.
I think that's, yeah, correct. It's more of just him remembering what happened to him and his family and just the people around him. Man, if you just need a film to just kind of reposition yourself and just like what's going on with you in life, this is the one to do it, because it makes you remember just how much horrible stuff is going on. It's another refugee finding escape from like war and violence. But that stuff happens all the time. And it's horrifying that these people have to struggle to survive, to live. And the ways that they have to go about it because they're refugees. And the emotional impact and like the mental impact that it'll have on them for the rest of their life. Even if they recover and are fine, they're still going to have that baggage connected to them. It's still going to stay with them. It's going to be a part of their history.
The one scene that maybe like the most uncomfortable to watch was when Armin and I think that was his brother were in the police car, and they were in the police car with like a young girl. They get taken out.
Content warning, assault. So I think they get the picture right there. Just horrible things happening. And then just like the fact that they had to escape one way and then were caught and had to go back and then struggle to go like to escape like again. And you see how this affects our main character, like how it affects Amin, and just how he talks about it. Like the film does take a lot of time for him to talk about the struggle with him and how he's about to get engaged and he hasn't really told his boyfriend what's going on and what's going to happen. And the film does follow like the before he tells his boyfriend what happens and then what happens after.
Not only that, but just the fact that, culturally, his sexual orientation is not even so much as frowned upon, but like it just isn't even a part of that culture at all, which kind of makes him feel more of an outcast than he would be just simply as a refugee.
It's disheartening. It's sad. And then they also dive into like the fact when he like officially confessed to his uncle and his two sisters that he was gay. And I was really worried. And it was nice to see that his uncle was just like you think like when he's taking him into the car, you think like, oh no, please do not let something bad happen to him. And yet he takes him to a gay club and he's like, here's some money. like feel free.
I swear, when I saw that scene, I let out the biggest sigh of relief. Like, oh, thank God something went right.
It's a very touching story told throughout, and like, and it has a nice ending to it. And I think as a whole, like, I guess the debate is, do you like this movie more as an animated film or as a documentary?
For me, on a personal note, I don't like this movie as much as the rest of the films that we're talking about tonight. I respect this as a unique animated experiment, but as a documentary, I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, I like these more human documentaries and such. And I liked the story that was told and the small sequences, like the person he was traveling with to escape from Russia and how they bonded, and then just his mindset of growing up, and then how he met his friends and his boyfriend, and how he loves cats. And, who doesn't love a cute little cat? You have to be a monster. And it's got like a good soundtrack by Uno Helmerson. It's a film that tells a compelling and human story. And while it does kind of have that feeling of, oh man, film festivals and film critics are going to eat this up, and people have. And I'm not saying it's hype and awards wins have been like, oh, it's not worth it. There are plenty of films that go through film festival runs that are like, everyone loves them, and then once everyone else sees it, everyone's just like, what?
Yep, we all have one of those.
And I don't think this is one of those films. I think like we said earlier, the hype was justified. It's a very compelling movie. It's a very sad movie, but it's also very hopeful and intimate. And I wasn't bothered by the animation. So it's definitely a very adult story. It's definitely absolutely not a film that you show to kids. I do think people should see this movie. Now, how or when Neon is going to open this film up for wide release, I'm not sure.
If it's playing near you somewhere, and, you know, like we said earlier, if you feel comfortable seeing movies in theaters and this is playing near you, I would highly recommend doing so. I don't know when this is getting a VOD release. I hope it's soon.
I hope it's soon, because Neon has been really quiet on how wide the release has been. And I know this is one of those controlled release strategies where they start small and then they expand and then expand some more. But it's still tiring that it's taken so long for this film to be seen. And I'm upset that I did not see this film in January. I could have, I just did not have the time to. And that makes me mad. Because having to wait a year for this could have easily like colored my perspective and bias towards it, being like, well, I don't know if it was worth a year waiting for it. It was very good. I enjoyed it. I think a lot of it is worth the hype. I'm not saying it isn't. But I think that's all I have to say about this film. Just great movie. I can see why it's going to win a ton of awards. This was interesting because this was Neon's first foray into animation. And I'm wondering if this is going to be like the key to unlock that door for Neon to be like, hey, let's start bringing over some movies or something.
I hope it is, because I have really been loving what Neon has been up to in the past. They've only been around for what, a few years now?
Yeah.
All I gotta say to them is keep it up. You're doing great.
Absolutely, man. It's been great. So let's move on to the one Netflix film that I think got, well, it shouldn't have been buried, but I think with so many people focusing on the Mitchells versus the Machines, and that, it came out after that. And even though it's had a lot of acclaim throughout film festivals, that when it's been played at those, It's a film that shouldn't be missed, and that is Patrick Imbert's The Summit of the Gods.
Yeah. So this is based on a manga by Jiro Taniguchi. So we follow a Japanese photojournalist named Fukumachi, who accidentally comes across a camera that may have belonged to George Mallory, a famous mountaineer who disappeared in 1924. However, a stranger comes along and takes the camera before Fukumachi can see the film. I was doing a little bit of research on the original manga, trying to figure out if this was based on a true story. And all I got was that they obviously springboard this off George Mallory, who, as the legend goes, he died on the north face of Mount Everest. And honestly, that's a great jumping off point to tell a story.
It is, and I think a lot of people are getting too hung up on the fact that the movie is not just 110% about the mountain climbing, because just a heads up, if you're going into this movie not knowing what to expect, it's more of a character study. And it's about what drives someone to do something. What drives these people who are climbing these absurdly giant rocks? And what's the emotional and psychological drive that sends these people to really risk their life to conquer? And it's kind of a mystery, or like it's not really a thriller per se of our main character trying to who is following this one climber who has he's well known, but he's also ostracized everyone else around him because he's so driven to do all of this. I think that's the most interesting part about the movie. I mean, I love all of the movie, but you need to have the slower moments, and it can't just be nonstop Everest climbing. I mean, I guess if you want that, you can go watch that live action film Everest that came out a few years ago with like Josh Brolin and a few other actors. I forgot their names.
Yeah, it's been a while, but damn, that movie had a stat cast.
For even if the movie is only 95 minutes, it's a slower paced experience, but it doesn't feel like that because I know. What did you think about how the film was set up between the photojournalist's quest to learn about this one climber that he encounters and the whole experience of capturing the moment and the journey to do so?
Honestly, I kind of love the way this film switches back and forth between Fukumachi's story of, wanting to explore this, this narrative, and then also kind of getting to know this mountaineer he's competing with himself and also the rival whose name is escaping me.
Well, it's not even a rival. He's just competing against himself, and just the notion of just everyone is trying to do this and he wants to be the best of the best.
I think I love the way that both of their stories kind of converge to the second half of the film, where they do meet each other and they do embark on the climb together. Well, separate but together. I knew I was going to love this movie by the time we got to the ending, when Fukumachi is reading the letter with the camera. And without giving too much away, the message that he wrote was just something that was very profound.
Yeah, and and that's what I like about this. They made an animated movie that had this kind of story, and the fact that people were kind of pushing back against that, I don't know what people were expecting with this movie. It wasn't meant to be this action-packed hiking adventure. It's a human story. And that's why I kind of scoff at some reviews I've seen where it's it's really dull. And it's like,
Completely disagree with that because I was hooked from start to finish. And even though even like the whole expedition of Everest is like, yeah, that is like the external plot, but I kind of mentioned in my review that it can be more metaphorical. Like everyone has a Mount Everest that they're trying to climb, whether it's like, you know, a goal that you're trying to pursue. Maybe it's that one job that you've been searching for, or like whatever it is, everyone has like that drive, that push to keep going.
yeah, to conquer their Mount Everest, whatever that may be. And I really like the animation. I'm glad they didn't go full on rotoscope for the animation. You could tell it's grounded. And I'm sure they did do some motion capture. But unlike a lot of like let's say Ralph Bakski's work or that one animated film from last year, The Spine of Night, where it's just like they're capturing every little movement. It's still fluid. You still get what they're doing, even if they take out a lot of the details.
I wonder how close of an adaptation this is to the manga, in terms of the art style. And by the way, one thing I love about this movie from a cultural standpoint is the last time I remember a Western adaptation of like a Japanese either manga or light novel was honestly Edge of Tomorrow. And that was like almost 8 years ago.
Don't tell me that. I don't want to believe that Edge of Tomorrow was 2014.
Oh, time is a construct.
Yeah. And it's such an atmospheric mood piece. And then just the whole like intense moments of just like either when one of the characters fall or that one moment scene where the climber has someone dangling off the rope and they have no way of like, it's the end for them.
Oh God. I had my fist clenched during that entire sequence.
It made me jump a little. And in the music by Amine Arbohafa was like, it reminds me a lot of how the music for Funan was handled. And it's just very mood, ethereal, atmospheric, and just great.
Yeah. I also love Fukumachi's taste in music. Whenever he has his headphones on, it's always some sort of like prog rock. It added a little bit of flavor to his character.
Yeah, Fukumichi's a very interesting character. I mean, like, he's not the most layered character. It's just like he's curious about the reason why like Habu is wanting to do all this, and then he himself gets obsessed in that same way. And the music when it's revolving around that last sequence of him following Habu is great. So it's just a great movie.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed when Netflix picked it up, but only because I want a physical release for this film. But that's just me being like, I don't want everything to be digital. I want to hold the movies I own. I've watched this movie both with subtitles and a dub, and I feel like they're both good. You do what you want to do. I just know that not everyone is going to want to read subtitles, so I'm glad that there is a dub for it.
I actually didn't realize that. I didn't know Netflix had both language tracks, so I just kind of defaulted to the English dub. The dub cast is good.
They got Darren Barnett, Rich Ting, Chris Naoki, Ray Yamamoto, Brent Yoshida, Richard K. Parks, Paul Nakauchi, Keiko Ajina, Keisuke Hoashi, Clyde Kusatsu, Brian Takahashi, and Paul. But I did like Lazare Herson Makarel, Eric Herson Makarel, Damian Buseu, Elizabeth Ventura. Like the both, you can't go wrong. Just know that there's something for everyone. You can watch it in English or you can watch it in its original French. I thought this movie was just fantastic. Just a great movie all around that I think a lot of people need to watch. I'm really disappointed that this film hasn't picked up more festival wins or award nominations, because I feel like this would be something that a lot of awards groups would love.
In a weaker year, this would have been a little bit higher up, but the competition for animation is off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, granted, like I know this is just animation is film, but when it had to go against like Popel of Chimney Town, Belle, the Deer King, Fortune Favors Lady Nikuko, and Flea, it's going to be tough. And I kind of get why like the Crossing won for audience winner, but I think I would have chosen the Summit of the Gods along with the other two winners, Belle and Flea. But I am glad that it's nominated for a nanny. Yeah, we'll just have to see. I think Belle is going to win, but who knows? It's also having to compete against Flea as well. So, but for now, I think it's time to move on to the one Funimation film that I think had all the chances to be an award winner, and yet
They blew it.
I think they did blow. I think Sony blew it. But I also understand that Sony was also probably busy with Netflix and pushing the Mitchells versus the Machines, even though that movie was going to have all the attention in the world anyway. So I think it wouldn't have hurt Funimation and Sony to push Josie the Tiger and the Fish, directed by Kotaro Tamura. If they couldn't make Your Name be Oscar winning, there was no chance that this film was going to be it. And that's so frustrating. Not that award wins and nominations make the quality of a film.
It's more about raising awareness of a film's existence.
Yeah, because, if we want to look at it in a cynical way, most award shows are marketing like spots to be like, here are some amazing movies that we're going to give awards to that you haven't seen, but since they're getting awards, that must mean they're important and you must see them.
So what is this movie about? Well, the film follows Suneo, an ordinary college student and avid diver who unexpectedly becomes the caretaker of a wheelchair-bound young woman in order to raise money for this dream to go diving in Mexico. This young woman, who calls herself Josie after a favorite book character, is sullen and demanding. But as Suneo helps Josie interact with the outside world and learns more about Josie's unique perspective, their feelings grow into love. The two begin to support each other in ways beyond just romance. So this is based on a short story by Seiko Tanabe. And I'm not going to lie and can't say I'm familiar with the source material, but you and I have seen plenty of movies similar to this in just like the past 5 years alone.
It's also had a live action film from 2003, and apparently there's a Korean version. So it's like this film has a lot of adaptations to compare and contrast. A Twitter friend of mine told me about the adaptations and how they changed the story. But this is one of those movies where it's, you hear about an able-bodied person gets into a deep relationship, sometimes romantic, sometimes not, with someone who is either sick, disabled, and these plots are usually very much the person with the sickness or the disability helps prop the able-bodied person and say you live your life because I can't live mine, where it's like, why don't you both help each other?
That's really exactly what happens in this movie.
I think that's what I like about this movie. Instead of just going the route of our main character becoming relearning his drive in life, because he does have a drive. He already has one. He wants to go and study overseas for college and to go to Mexico and keep up his marine biology or zoology work. But I'm glad that I think that one detail really helps elevate this movie is that they both help each other. It's not just one or the other getting their life together. They're both getting their lives together.
Mm-hmm. That's just the character development is by far and away the best thing about this movie. That's pretty much your number one priority for any romance. First of all, the two characters have to be compelling in their own right, but they also have to work as a pair. And then also their bond needs to be organic. I think the way that these two find that common ground which does involve the sea. And given our track record for other Japanese animated content involving some body of water, it was almost guaranteed that this movie was going to be great.
I think what I like about this movie is how it gives Josie a much bigger character. And that's not always a given. Like we've talked about this, and I just liked how as the two bond, like understandably, Josie is very standoffish because she thinks the world kind of sucks. She was born with this disability and she's let it define her. And here's this one person who randomly jumps into her life. And then she says, like, I'm just going to drive this person up a wall and they won't be able to do a thing about it. And then once she lets her guard down, he lets his guard down about like having to be defensive of her. And the film does dive into like how society does not really treat people with a disability well.
They don't.
They really don't, and that sucks. And then he gets to see, like, he was very like narrow driven with his story and how he's just like, I just want to go and work, that's all. And there's not much to it, but then like that scene where they go to the beach for the first time and he helps her find out what salt water tastes like. It leads to one of the more wholesome and touching story beats when they're just kind of running through the water and he finds like life with and just like passion and the drive, like how a lot of these movies have that as a theme, which is kind of interesting. We didn't set this up. These were all just award nominated or award submitted movies that just all happen to have very similar themes.
Couldn't have planned it any better. But yeah, I love that moment on the beach. It was just very touching. And I think that was the moment where it clicked, where it's like, oh, okay, so this is just going to be a very wholesome relationship that they form. And while it's not all sunshine and rainbows, from there on out, it's the start of something real.
I think it helps that Josie has agency as a character. And it helps that like the male lead like actually gets involved with, like, when she feels like, man, my life is just nothing after like some very crucial story moments happen. And he's just like, no, I'm not going to let you give up. Do not give up. And there's also some very metaphorical and symbolic story moments that help drive what the characters are going through. They are extremely well implemented. Like you could pick apart like the story that Josie makes for like the kids to read to, and then the whole visiting the zoo with the tiger and how that feels. It's just a really good story for what it is. Like it's a good romance story. And I feel like we don't get a lot of good romance stories in theatrical animation.
We don't. Like romance in animation is either an afterthought in even some of the best movies, or it takes center stage, but it's like awful and toxic, and
or it's like a will they won't they kind of thing. I'm very like, I love romance movies, but I have very specific like rules or just like elements that I like in a romance. And it's like, okay, if you're going to do this, then I don't want to see this or that, or something predictable. They just keep the story focused on these two. And while the side characters may not have as much development as the others, they're still funny. I still like the co-workers that the lead works with.
I have a question about that. Assuming you've seen the dub.
I've seen the dub and the sub, the podcast. So
I was going to ask, how is Zeno Robinson as the best friend? Because I kept going back and forth with how I felt about the character, but ultimately by the end, I ended up really liking him.
Oh, he's great. Zeno Robinson does a great job as the character. Like the dub is really good. It's so good. It's kind of like wild how good it is. Like I would say this is one of Funimation's best dubs. I think Howard Wang, Susie Young, Danny Chambers, and Zeno Robinson as like the core of the film cast are great. And they definitely capture what the Japanese actors Taishi Nakagawa, Kaya Kiyohara, Yume Miyamoto, and Kazuyuki Okitsu were going for. Both the sub and the dub versions are great. You can't go wrong with either one. Let's talk about the animation a little. This is produced by Studio Bones, the My Hero Academia people, the Super Crooks people. It's great looking. Studio Bones has constantly put out very gorgeous looking work, and I don't know if that's just because they're able to work well, they have good working conditions, and they have the right talent for it. But I just love how the whole film looks. And I like that they were able to squeeze in more comedic like facial movements into it, and it doesn't feel distracting. It helps express how the characters are feeling without it doesn't feel distracting when they have more cartoonish looks to them.
The humor in this movie it's just genuine. Everything about the emotional beats of this movie feel genuine. And going back to the animation, I said half jokingly that if it came from Japan and involves water, I'm going to love it. I'm not kidding when I say this one kind of fantasy sequence with Josie kind of swimming in her room that's like all completely submerged. That scene looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's probably the one real dream sequence like moment in the film where her lower body, like in the dress, is turned into like a mermaid tail. It looks great. It's very creative with how they handle it. And yeah, it is very funny. It's very cute. And I think that's because the humor is very universal, like you said. And I did love the sequence where Josie reads to the kids for the first time and she's just rushing through the story. And all the kids are just like, wow.
The one kid who just like gets up and walks away.
I don't blame the kid. When you do stuff like that, you have to be like on their energy and such. So just like to keep them invested. And I like that actually does come back and becomes a satisfying arc. And I do like that the characters do have arcs to them, even if Hayato is just don't be a punk. Now, I will say I was not a huge fan of the love triangle elements.
I was going to bring that up next, how you felt about the way the love triangle was handled.
I'm not fond of these plot points because I just think they're not executed well. And that's really the name of the game for anything. I won't mind a plot point that I've seen before as long as you make it interesting or you execute it in a way where it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And not, hold on, I can check my phone at this point. Gonna play some Angry Birds or whatever until they realize that the love triangle it's silly. But I understand it's like after a crucial moment to something that happens with Sunio, he ends up like kind of in the same spot that Josie ends up in, and Mai is just like, hey, I loved you. And then like when he decides to just kind of like that drive, and Mai goes to see Josie, and I think that's really where it becomes like, okay, I like this. I don't mind this plot point for how I felt about it. Like I wish they could have found a better thing to do for the story than to push that part of the story than a love triangle. But they don't really focus on it. And then they just kind of do the whole part where it's like, Maya's like, I know everything about this guy. I should be his girlfriend. Josie's like, hey, you might know more about him than me, but I know him. And it's just something I feel within here, like in her heart.
Sunio and Mai may have known each other longer, but there's like a deeper connection that he shares with Josie, and ultimately that's why I didn't mind the love triangle, because I knew that it was not even remotely the focus. They just kind of tossed it in there as like, I don't even want to say padding, to create a little bit more tension and to reinforce the connection between our two leads. That's why I didn't really mind the love triangle, but I think that scene where Mai goes to Josie's house and says all of that, it's like that was sort of like the beginning and the end of that subplot.
Yeah. And I mean, and there are definitely some moments where I was just like, I didn't care for that line or dialogue sequence. I wish I could remember it, but I had to watch a lot of movies recently, so forgive me. But really, all of the complaints I have are very minor. There's nothing that really detracted from the experience for me. So I just love this movie. It
Yeah.
stayed as my like second favorite film of the year until Belle came out, and then it became third favorite, and then the Mitchells became the second favorite, and then Belle became, well, spoilers, my favorite movie of 2021.
Just taking a look at my lists, basically the last three movies that we are talking about tonight are all in my top 10. So pretty much at number 10 is Summon of the Gods. At number 4 is Josie the Tiger and the Fish. And let's just get right into it. Belle's number 1. Oh my God, Belle. So, for those who don't know, this is the latest film from Studio Chizu's Mamoru Hosoda. And it's his kind of loose take on Beauty and the Beast. Suzu is a shy, everyday high school student living in a rural village. For years, she has only been a shadow of herself. But when she enters You, a massive virtual world, she escapes into her online persona as Belle, a gorgeous and globally beloved singer. One day, her concert is interrupted by a monstrous creature chased by vigilantes. As her hunt escalates, Suzu embarks on an emotional and epic quest to uncover the identity of this mysterious beast and to discover her true self in a world where you can be anyone. So I've said before that this was my first experience with the director, but boy, what a first impression this film made.
I was super hyped for this movie ever since I found out about it last year. And then just the slow, agonizing wait to finally see it. It missed out on the Annecy preview. So, and I'm wondering if that might have hurt its award chances that it came out afterwards, but we'll get to that later. And then, of course, I was just waiting for that day for like, I'm sure G Kids is going to pick this up, and then just hearing nothing. And then, of course, around June, G Kids is like, hey, we picked up this movie. Then it was just another agonizing wait to finally see this movie. And then the pandemic was continuing to kick back in. And I made this the first movie I saw back in a theater because I saw this in September as the one film I watched from the Fantastic Fest lineup.
Nice.
And then, of course, it was one of the big front runner films in Animation is Film, and it's also just one of the biggest indie foreign animated films of the year because it also got a 14-minute standing ovation at Cannes and was one of the big winners from Animation is Film. It took home the jury award, and now it's nominated for the Annies. And it was fate, it was destiny that this would be my favorite animated film of 2021. But I was ready for the Mitchells to still stay the best one for me. But then I saw it, and then after I watched it, I thought about it, and then I kept thinking about it. And then I'd listen to the soundtrack ad nauseum. And it's just like, okay, this is my favorite movie.
In my Letterboxd review, I said that what makes this my favorite movie of the year is that it just kind of represents the medium in 2021. Not even just animation, but movies in general. Because while this isn't a full-blown musical, our main character is a singer. At least like her true self is a singer. So she gets a couple musical numbers, one of which is probably one of the best scenes I've seen all the year. But there's like, the whole concept behind You is very sci-fi heavy. And given Hosoda's history with the Digimon franchise, this all kind of comes full circle.
Well, it comes full circle because, yeah, he worked on 2 of the Digimon specials because I'm not calling that movie a movie. It was a Frankenstein of specials based off of Digimon. And then he like basically went out of his way to make his own version of that movie.
With Summer Wars.
Like he had his commentary about social media and the internet without it being super condescending like a lot of movies would have done by less talented directors. And then he kind of comes full circle with Belle and just how the landscape of online has changed. And a lot of people are like, but it's just 2021. How much has actually changed? Summer Wars came out in like 2009. That's like almost 2 decades worth of like change in history and what the internet landscape has become.
A lot has happened in between that time, and I don't know if any other filmmaker has like their finger on the pulse of the internet and just kind of youth culture that he does, because the way that this social media site kind of works, it feels like TikTok a little bit, but with like a VR element, just in terms of like how fast one influencer can like explode in popularity. They make that pretty obvious when Suzu starts out with like 0 followers, and then like the next day she's got like over 2 million.
There's a lot of commentary about how people like present themselves online and then who they are in real life. And I love that aspect of the app that's known as You goes the route of this is who you are by how we scanned you and such. And what's also really cool about this movie is that it's a collaboration from around the world.
I was going to bring that up next, how this movie kind of continues my thesis that anime is becoming much more of a global phenomenon. Not just that like it's become more popular around the world, but actual collaboration between the Japanese studios and animators who are like veterans at Disney. And it was Cartoon Saloon who kind of designed like the backgrounds of the virtual world, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, they got a Disney character designer, the same guy who designed Elsa from Frozen to design Belle. And yeah, Cartoon Saloon, like you said, did the background work, which once you realize that, instead of because I was just kind of looking around all over the place to see like where the characters that they designed maybe were. But then it's like, oh, they all did background work. And then I rewatched it again and I was just like, oh, that makes sense.
It also kind of explains like the almost sharp contrast between the real world and the virtual world.
It's interesting because I think a lot of times with these kind of plots, it's always like curse the internet. It shouldn't exist. The internet, it's more than just this hate filled like cesspool of a place. It's brings all these people together, discussions and such. And I think that's just great. I like that Hosoda does not just have a like the internet was a mistake plot.
Yeah, no, if anything, he seems like the internet's biggest cheerleader. And how while this can be a dangerous place on the whole, there's a lot more to appreciate about it. And I guess to appreciate about yourself, because the big hook to this service is that it reveals the hidden you.
Yeah, it's like you can't restart in the human world, but you can restart here and bring out like these cool, quirky looking characters and such. But it's definitely more just like this is just you and such. And it has a ton of different themes that are running throughout this whole thing. First off, do not go into this movie thinking it's a Beauty and the Beast ripoff. Like, don't go into thinking this is going to be like the Disney version or whatever.
That being said, I think it's extremely obvious that the Vigilantes are basically the anime version of Gaston, but split into like 50 other characters.
Yeah, it uses the Beauty and the Beast story beats as metaphors, like for the story and just the themes, and how it's just about our main character dealing with loss and then coming like out as her true self, and just how like the person who plays the dragon is not a bad person. It's just what his circumstances this is what Yu has brought out. And of like it, he looks monstrous when he's not. It's a film that also deals with a lot of abuse plot points when you, and I'm not going to spoil too much about exactly what's going on, even though by the time this podcast comes out, the film will be in wider release. I just want people to be ready for that. It's also about our main character becoming stronger, to be brave, and to heal, and just how her music brings people together, how she brings people together, and how, like, judging people like on face value is not a good thing. I love her dynamic between her and the popular girl.
I was not sure what exactly to expect with that relationship, but the more it developed, like the more I really started to appreciate it.
There's this really sweet scene, like you can actually pick up about what the popular girl's situation is if you watch that first sequence when you see her playing the saxophone, and how everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's amazing, she's gorgeous. And then you see that one character with the like, join the kayaking club. And you can pick up exactly what she's thinking, like, and how she moves just by like that first sequence, which leads to a really great payoff when the three, like her, the kayaking guy, and Suzu, the main character, are at that train station area.
Oh my god, the facial expressions that Kamishin,
Yeah, Kamishin.
the facial expressions that he makes in that scene just cracked me up.
Oh, that scene was huge when I saw it at Fantastic Fest. Everyone was laughing their heads off. And it's a really funny movie. Hosoda has a good sense of humor. And it's also really cute how, like, throughout both times, Kamishin is just like, oh, so you're wishing me good luck, so that means you have a crush on me. And it's just like, no. Just, but then when he meets the popular girl, he's like, oh no, I'm just kidding, don't worry. And then he's just like, wait. And then Haru's like, uh-huh. And he's like, so she likes me? Uh-huh. And he just bails out of there and then comes back, and he's just like trying to look like strong and confident, even though he's just like, oh my gosh, like he's just about to like fall to his knees in like excitement and just nervousness. It's just like, this is a good cast. And I like the Suzu's friend, a guy who's kind of protective of her, and but not protective in like a very obsessive or toxic way. Just like,
he just wants to be there for her because he knows how tough she's had it ever since her mom passed away. It's her life has been turned upside down, and he's just like, hey, I want to protect you because I care about you.
And I like that, where it's just like, and they do probably end up together, but you kind of like know that's going to happen. They don't like make a big deal about it, but you kind of can tell that they get together at the end. And I like the dragon character, Kaye, and just a very different take on the beast character. And just when you find out about the character himself and such,
I think his introduction is, for a movie that's not necessarily an action film, I think his introduction, where he's like just kind of kicking the crap out of the vigilantes, is one of the coolest things that wouldn't otherwise belong in a movie like this.
Hosoda has made it clear that he's going to start using more CGI within his movies, because apparently it's very hard to find people who are trained in 2D animation, which, that says a lot about the anime industry, but we're not going to talk about that here. But still. And I think the CGI looks good. And it's not like it's all CGI. It's still pretty much 2D, but the online stuff is CGI.
This is a good sort of transition for Hosoda's diehard audience, who maybe aren't really the biggest fans of CG animation, but will follow him anywhere. The fact that the lion's share of this film kind of takes place in the virtual world kind of gives him a license to experiment with CG. And I gotta say, the experiment was a success.
The CGI is very expressive. They took like the lessons learned by like Studio Orange or the ones who work at like Mappa or something, where the characters are very expressive. They still move like how anime film characters move, but there's more to their, like they have more detail to them. They have more expressive features. And I honestly was a little worried about that, but of course I shouldn't have been worried because Hosoda has used CGI in some of his previous films like Mirai and The Boy and the Beast. And boy, he I just realized Hosoda has a thing for whales because they show up a lot in Belle. You can actually catch the foreshadowing of them if you look at one scene. I forgot where it is, but it's very early in the film. But then his other film, The Boy and the Beast, uses a whale as like a conflict point at the end. It's just interesting. It's like how people kind of dragged Disney into the dirt, saying like, "What is with y'all and turning people into bears?"
Everyone has to have a calling card.
Yeah, so it's just amusing in that regards that happens. But yeah, I never found the CGI to be distracting. And considering that we're still getting nonsense like X Arm and rusted armors, oh Lord, I
Oof.
can't wait. I can't wait to talk about that nonsense in another episode. But ugh, I think Japan is getting better at how they're using CGI. And all it takes is that you can't just say, oh, here's the CGI model, here's the motion capture stuff, done. You have to have animators and you have to have them know exactly what they're doing, or else, you get a Tesla note.
You just need to have like the right resources.
Yeah, time, talent, money. Like, don't rush this stuff. And I know it's like you can't just take 20 or 30 years to make your masterpiece or whatever, but just give them enough time to be able to get the job done to make it look good, because otherwise it's going to show that y'all rushed certain points. Now, the music.
Oh my god, the music.
Well, first off, the overall soundtrack is another collaborative effort between multiple artists, and it's great. I downloaded the whole soundtrack on iTunes. And what's interesting is that Belle sings this, or like the actress that they got sings the songs. Kaho Nakamura.
She has a beautiful voice.
She does, and I think this is her first time acting too. So, and they do have an English dub. We were not able to see the English dub. We only got screeners for the Japanese version. But I did listen to clips of the English dub, and I think they did a good job. And they have a medley of the songs that Belle sings on YouTube. And Kylie McNeil, who plays Belle and Suzu in the movie, does a great job. I can't imagine how tough it is to translate these tunes because you have to sing pretty fast, especially for you. And then the gale of songs, which is a great moment. Really, there might not be too many musical moments.
The ones they have, they leave a lasting impact. Like, I'm a little bit surprised that more people aren't talking about Lend Me Your Voice.
I think it's that or A Million Miles Away are like, I would assume would be the big like award-winning numbers. But of course, everyone's overlooking them because Belle's an anime film, and anime apparently isn't good enough for some reason. But I'm just going to quickly give a shout out to the English cast for they're probably going to be doing a good job. But they have like Kylie McNeil, Paul Castro Jr., Ben Lepley, Jessica DeSico, Manny Jacinto, Brandon Ingman, Hunter Schafer, Chase Crawford, Ellen Stern, Andrew Kishino, David Chen, Noel McGrath, Jessica G. George, Barbara Goodson shows up, and you're probably going to spot her anyway. Martha Harms, Wendy Lee, Julie Nathanson, and Kif Vanderhevel. And then they also have like a ton of people playing background characters. Like you'll hear Sung Won or AKA ProZD in the background. So I'm sure you'll be able to spot them when they pop up. But I was impressed that they were dubbing this. I get worried sometimes. There are points where distributors will not dub the music. And I don't know if that's just because of time or it's just they don't have the talent to do it.
Feel bad for saying this is the worst example, but my least favorite short from Star Wars Visions was the one with the rock band.
Oh, the one
Because
with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
yeah, like, dude, I love you, man, but that song did not translate well in English.
No, it didn't. And I know some people have defended that scene, but it's like, no, I'm sorry. No, no.
But based on what little I've heard of McNeil's performance, I'm impressed.
Yeah. And G Kids is good at that. They get studios that can handle that. And I think it's the one that's owned by Stephanie Shea, the famed voice actress and such, but I'd have to look that up. But yeah, there's not much else I can talk about with this movie. I love the musical sequences. I love Lend Me Your Voice and A Million Miles Away, which is just powerful, just good stuff. It's my favorite movie of the year, and not just animated. It's the movie of 2021 for me.
Same. I said it before, but it kind of bears repeating. This movie it's why I love movies. It's why I take a specific liking to animation, because it's a medium unbound by limits, save for one's own imagination. The themes of this film, combined with the world building, the character development, everything about this it just kind of reaffirms everything that you and I are pursuing on this website, and just my whole experience in the film community. I think everyone should see this if they're given the opportunity.
What's unfortunate is that it's coming out right when there's another surge of the pandemic, which really is just bad timing. That sucks. And I feel so bad for G Kids because I'm sure we were kind of like, yeah, we can start showing movies. Never mind. Oh, I wish there wasn't so much going on. Like, I want this movie to be seen by as many people as possible, but y'all need to be safe and make sure that you feel good going out to see a movie. So, but hopefully that's the case because everyone should see Belle, and it'll probably take like another few months before it finally hits Blu-ray. So,
yeah, by that point, I will have fulfilled my promise to catch up with the rest of Hosoda's filmography. But with that said, Cameron, do you have any recommendations for us?
I do, because I finally started to jump into the anime season because we're going to do this again. We're going to die doing it. But unfortunately, I didn't have time to watch many of the shows that are out right now. I watched 3 of them. One of them was Rusted Armors. That's not the recommendation. It's pretty much the front runner for worst anime of the season. So instead, I watched My Dress Up Darling. And this is an anime that's produced by Cloverworks. And of course, right now, Cloverworks is going through some controversy about how they've been treating their animators. You know, treat your animators better, anime industry. We're tired of talking about that. My Dress Up Darling is about a high school boy who has a hobby of making those small, like, Japanese dolls that are more for ceremonial things and like decor, and not like really like you play with dolls and such. And he keeps this a secret because he knows people are going to laugh at him and think he's a creep or a weirdo due to past incidences where that has happened. So he ends up befriending like a super popular girl, and it's just like, oh great, here we go with this kind of trope. And you find out that she wants to cosplay, but she's not good at it because she's not very good at making her like costumes and such. And she's looked down upon liking anime stuff because, you know, The world is cruel, and for some reason you have to look a certain way to like certain things.
Hmm.
And what this show does well for its first episode, and this is just a first episode impression, is that it's going to destigmatize all of that. Like reinforce the thing of like, hey, it doesn't matter what you like. A hobby is a hobby and you should be able to enjoy it.
That's great. I love when media basically tells you it's okay to embrace the things that you love.
Because like what happens is that he ends up befriending her and he makes a deal with her saying like, hey, I will sew cosplay outfits for you. And then they end up with a friendship, and it's really sweet. I have my issues with Cloverworks as a studio right now, but it's mostly just part of the overall issue of anime in general. So it was really sweet. And I just thought it was just really good. Definitely one of the so far better, best anime of the season. I also watched Sasaki and Miyano, a boy love anime, which I've heard that the source material is great. And so I was just like, well, we kind of need something better than that tri-cornered window nonsense from last year. Because I felt bad that it was the one boy love anime we talked about last year, and it was not good, or at least we didn't find it to be good. I know a lot of people like that show. I just wasn't one of them. Sasaki and Miyano is just really freaking cute. It's just so peaceful and wholesome, and the characters actually like each other and they toy with one another and they care about one another and they respect one another. It's like, oh my goodness, a healthy romance and boy love, like in a boy love show. Like, what happened? What year is it?
Is there an age difference between the two, or
They're in high school, so
okay, good.
one of them is just tall, but this is yaoi and boy love. There's got to be one tall boy.
Of course, it's just par for the course.
Yeah. And hey, at least if they're going to keep the tropes like that, and apparently this source material, like, it doesn't spoof it, but it kind of like has fun with it. Like, I'm down for that. And I just think these two so far have been really swell. I like both of them. I can't wait to get into everything else, even though from what I've heard, there's some garbage that we'll have to dive into for better or for worse. So
Oh boy. For my recommendation, I've been diving into comfort food. I haven't really had the best week this week, been dealing with a lot of car troubles, so I kind of slipped into my comfort food, which is rewatching the Boo saga of Dragon Ball Z Kai. And I know we're not really happy with Toei Animation right now, given how poorly they handle fair use. And we are all supporting Totally Not Mark right now.
right.
But still, going back to watch this saga again it's always fun going back to the series. And part of the reason I'm doing that is to get hyped the new Dragon Ball Super movie, Superhero, because as we talked about last time, Gohan is one of my favorite characters, and he has not been treated well in recent years. So I'm desperately hoping that the movie kind of puts him back in the spotlight, similar to how he was in the Cell saga. I'm enjoying going back and rewatching the Boo saga because while they do kind of drop the ball with Gohan's character towards the end, he takes a lot of center stage in the first half, and it's just really enjoyable. Plus, the one actually compelling romance that Toriyama creates between Gohan and Videl is genuinely worth it.
I mean, it's easy to make fun of Dragon Ball. Hell, it's easy to make fun of any popular anime that comes out.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, I remember partially enjoying the Boo saga, mostly because I wasn't able to finish it. It's why I'm just like not on a contact high with that season, unlike the Cell games and such.
Here's the thing about the Boo saga that's different from the rest, but why I personally enjoy it. It's Toriyama going full creative freedom. He said, fine, if I'm going to do this, I want no interference, no editorial mandates. like what happened with the Android Saga. I'm doing this all my way. And it's kind of the reason why it's both the darkest arc in the series and also kind of the wackiest. Totally, it can get a little messy, but I just have a lot of nostalgia for that arc because at the time when I was like, I think in 4th grade, that's when that arc was on Toonami. That was when I was like at the peak of my Dragon Ball fandom. So I just have a lot of nostalgia for that particular period.
Awesome. So that's it for this episode. Next time, we're just going to follow up with a few more smaller animated films that I definitely want to talk about before we move on into the new year, because I want to find a way to talk about SEAL Team.
Of all the ones that we're talking about next time, the two that I'm really looking forward to are SEAL Team, because you know me, I love a good pun. And towards the end of the year, Netflix kind of said, oh, hey, by the way, you want a Hilda movie? Because you're getting a Hilda movie. So I'm looking forward to finally catching that one.
Honestly, we're probably just going to be talking. It's going to be an Oops All Netflix episode next week. So,
all right. Well, before we head out of here, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/Cam's Eye View. If you like my work, you can support me that way. It would be very beneficial for me. And I'm also making a Ko-Fi account, and I am very close to launching it. I just put the finishing touches on it. And so if you are not a fan of the Patreon route, Ko-Fi or Coffee is going to be another way you can support me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can look for us on Podchaser. We will have a Patreon launching soon. But until then, you can check out all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Give us a like, give us a rating, do all that stuff. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. Thank you guys for joining, and we will catch you guys later. Peace out.